All right, now it is time for something a little bit different.
Wrestling fans, the Drama King is here to introduce you to the newest, greatest form of entertainment. That's right, because the following podcast is scheduled for one fall. Ladies and gentlemen, weighing in at amazingly entertaining, I want to welcome to the ring the greatest, most technically sound podcast on the face of the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Wrestling with Wi-Fi. Tuning in right now.
Alrighty, so that was a way to kick it off, wasn't it? So anybody here who has tuned in and is a wrestling fan, your ears did not deceive you. That was indeed the melodic voice of Aiden English, former WWE superstar, available on Cameo, and yes, he did me a solid. So anyways, in case you're wondering if you've tuned in, because I dropped this somewhere on the social media, this is a new podcast. It's going to cover a lot of different things, hence the title, and I figure we'll do a quick intro and some explanations, and we'll go from there. So anyways, my name is John. If you're tuning in, you probably know that already because you've seen it on one of my social media sites, of which there's only a couple, and you may or may not know that I've done this podcast hosting thing a time or two before. The show that I was previously associated with, I still am. It still exists. We just have to pin down sometimes and get a different schedule going. The reality is life and work and everything else has gotten busy for both of us, and it's just harder and harder to record, and sort of not an excuse, just stating the obvious. If anybody in the tech space or Wi-Fi space has noticed, outside of those people who do this for a living, and I'm talking about like the YouTube channel guys that, you know, they're cranking out a video or two every week because that's how they make their money. You know, the hobbyists of this world, a lot of the podcasts that were truly just labors of love have sort of, I don't want to say waned a little bit, but I think the last couple of years have been really hard on a lot of them, and ours was no different. And I think I know there's a couple others in Wi-Fi that there just hasn't been a lot of content to be made. You know, products are coming in slower because of a variety of different reasons, and on top of that, I think people are traveling less. They're consuming these less often. I know I am. I've got a significant backlog, and then also there's just a lot less happening in the tech space. I mean, if we're not getting into and we're starting to go back to the office now, which is good, but if you're not in the office, in the field, deploying as much, and with the pandemic, we weren't, most of us, there's a lot less to talk about. And so given a talk show, it's if you don't have stuff to talk about, there's no point in having a conversation, and then things just sort of peter out. But so yeah, I'm gonna kick off a new one anyways. And so into the name, right? Wrestling with Wi-Fi. To be honest, this idea, I probably had this name actually picked before Landon offered me the opportunity to co-host the spatial streams with him. But it never went anywhere. I really didn't do anything other than park a domain and kind of throw some artwork together and just kind of put it on pause. And for whatever reason, lately I've been motivated to try and kick it off, and here I am, right? So Wrestling with Wi-Fi, what is it, why is it, and where do we go from here, right? So I am, if anybody really knows me knows, I am a lifelong wrestling fan. You know, if you're in Phoenix and at WLPC Monday night, I will be scurrying back to my hotel room to watch Raw, and I will be writing about it because I've been a wrestling blogger for probably the last 10 or 12 years. I don't know, it could be less than that. I lost track of time. It's been a long time. And before that, I've been a huge fan. Since I was really little. My joke is I was a fan of wrestling before it was cool to be a fan of wrestling. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I've literally, you know, I was a child of the 80s, grew up on Hulk Hogan and so on and so forth. So that's the wrestling component of it. And then Wi-Fi is sort of self-explanatory. I'm a wireless engineer, CWNE and whatnot. So there's a connection there too. And I debated playing around with it and just calling it Wrestling with ... and leaving it open-ended. And then I figured, well, it's my show, so if I want to be Wi-Fi centric today, I can be Wi-Fi centric today. And if I want to be life centric today, I can be life centric today. And if I want to be bouncing all over the place, I can and I will. So, yeah. But the reality is, when it came down to looking at names and logos and kind of mocking it up, the logo looked a heck of a lot nicer with the Wi-Fi in there as opposed to just the dot dot dot. So that's kind of why we went with what we went with. And the reality is, since my day-to-day job sort of, not sort of, it really does focus on wireless and technology, that's going to be a prevailing underlying theme. It's going to be hard for me to get away from that until or unless that job changes, and hopefully that doesn't change anytime soon in case my bosses are listening to this. So that's kind of where I'm at, right? But so wrestling, how does that fit with Wi-Fi, right? So a lot of us, even the experts, wrestle with Wi-Fi. I mean, it could be a different problem. It could be a challenging problem. It could be, just you want to do the knockout blow for a particular project, client, customer, troublesome device, whatever. So it kind of fits. We can be a little bit playful there. And then with life, the whole dot, 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 leaving it wide open, right? We wrestle with a lot of different things. The pandemic is something that we're all very, very aware of at this point, and it's 2 years on, and we're nearing the end, or hopefully we're nearing the end, and things seem to be getting back to normal, or quote unquote whatever the new normal is. But we're still wrestling with it, and we've been wrestling with it, and here we can talk about it, right? So working from home, being around the family more, being around the family less, seeing people less, less conferences, less events, less in the office time. Whatever it is, whatever pops into my head, whatever somebody might suggest to me on Twitter or wherever you bump into me, I'm game to talk about it, right? I mean, there's a lot of different topics that I think especially in the last couple of years within the community and in life in general, have gotten a lot more exposure, a lot more visibility, and it's been a lot less of a stigma to talk about certain things, and that's good, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's good to talk about it, about anything that you want to talk about. You shouldn't feel ashamed or anything like that. So that's kind of the other side of the coin, right? So I could fire this machine up in any given time and say, I'm going to talk about Wi-Fi today. Or I could turn it on and say, I'm going to talk about, stress or taking time off or physical fitness or anything like that. So that's it's going to be a wide-ranging, open sort of forum, if you will. And I hope it's fun, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope people do tune in. And I hope I can stick with it. I'll admit to you right now, I'm sitting waiting to pick up my daughter from school, recording this in my car because I've got a quiet car and a good setup and a good opportunity, so I might as well make some content while I have a 10-minute chunk of time. And so I will hope to make this on a regular basis, hopefully once a week, if not a little bit more often. But we'll start getting it going, and we'll get into a cadence, and we'll see what happens and how it goes, and what people like and what people don't like, and how it goes, and yeah. So it's good to get back in the saddle, so to speak, and record. And again, I the spatial streams will come back. I assure you of that. Landon and I have talked about that, and it's not gone. It's not dead. It's just not here right now. And then on top of that, there's another podcast that will be a lot more wireless and a lot more vendor specific. And if you guys know who I work for, you'll probably put two and two together. That is coming, and it should be coming sooner than later. And that'll be out there too, although that's going to be very much specific to that particular engagement. But if you really want to listen to me or you want to hear Wi-Fi, that's certainly something you can tune into. So anyways, that's it for now. Getting this done in a little bit under 10 minutes, depending on how I chop that up. But let's wrap up this match and on to the next one. So thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of the week.